In today's episode, Julie asks, what are the best practices for managing the Google Analytics UTM tracking codes? UTM tracking codes are named after actually the product that Google Analytics used to be called. Back in 2005, Google bought a product called Urchin Web Analytics, which used to be like really ridiculously expensive. And the UTM code stands for Urchin Tracking Module. And these are a mainstay of Google Analytics, and chances are you've seen these in use all over the place. They are appended to the end of URLs. UTM codes come in 5 different flavors, and it's really important to understand sort of the hierarchy of the way they look. So let's go to the slides here and just talk about these 5 codes. There are 5 codes: source, medium, campaign, term, and content. And you can use any of these. They are arbitrary, meaning that you have discretion over what they're called. There are some built-in ones. So the source, typically, if you don't specify one and you get traffic from somewhere else, the source will be where that it came from, like Facebook.com or Twitter.com or NewYorkTimes.com. The medium is the type of traffic that Google Analytics thinks it is. So Google Analytics has what are called default channel groupings: social, email, referral, paid search, display advertising, organic, and Google, based on the list of domains that it maintains, tries to categorize traffic based on where it's coming from. The hierarchy of these tags is there's 2 tags that are sort of channel-based tags, and these are the source and the medium. These are essentials. These are things that pretty much you want to track everything. It's important to say, by the way, that UTM tracking codes apply at what's called the hit level or the visit level. So even if somebody comes in from one site and then leaves your website and then comes back from a different website, that second visit, the second hit, is going to be counted in and tracked separately, because you want that level of granularity. So just know that UTM tracking codes apply at the individual hit level. So channel is source and medium. These are the essentials that you need to always have, so that you know where your traffic is coming from, especially if you are using, you're sending traffic like emails and things like that. You always want to have those tags present in places where Google may not know what to do with traffic. If you look in your Google Analytics and you look at your top content sources, which is under acquisition, all traffic, sources, medium, and you're like 60, 70, 80% direct unknown or direct none traffic in Google Analytics, that means that you're getting a lot of traffic that Google doesn't know what to do with. And so it classifies it as direct instead of the source and the medium that it can identify. So things like organic search, for example. So source and medium should be always things that you specify for any place where you're sharing a URL other than on your own website. So don't use UTM tags on your own website, but do use them anywhere else that is not your website. So on social media, in your email marketing, on a billboard, use them wherever you can outside your website so you can track things appropriately and make sure that you're giving credit to all of your marketing efforts. The second level of a UTM tag is the campaign level, and this tag is called campaign. Source tells us where a visit is coming from. The medium tells us how they got here. So source, Facebook, medium, social. Campaign helps us group tags or URLs into discrete marketing efforts, campaigns. And a campaign may or may not be time-based. It may just be a subset of a channel. So for example, I could tag all my US I Answer videos as a campaign. A US I Answer would be a campaign. And there's no end to this campaign. It's just a thing. Your email newsletter could be a campaign. It's just a way of categorizing your UTM codes within a channel for specific uses. So Facebook, you may have a Facebook page, you may have a Facebook group. URLs that you share in your Facebook page, you may want to have a campaign called like Facebook page, and your Facebook group URLs you might want to have as Facebook group. So again, bringing differentiation within that channel. The third layer are the content units, and this is where you use term and content. Term was traditionally used for Google AdWords, and then content was used to specify, like, blue ad, green ad, yellow ad. But again, remember, these are all arbitrary, so you can again use these two tags to differentiate individual pieces of content within a campaign. So, for example, if I'm using if I have a campaign of my Almost Timely newsletter, I might have a term or content. I could use either one or both to differentiate links like the header nav or the footer or links in articles to better understand where people are clicking. So that hierarchy is really important. Now, in terms of how do you use UTM tags really well, there are a bunch of best practices, and you Google all over the internet for these, but fundamentally, you need to have a naming guide. You need to have tracking codes that are meaningful and readable by all the people who work on your team. If it's just you, you still want to have this. And you have to be consistent in your naming conventions. For UTM tags, keep them lowercase. Use only letters, numbers, dashes, underscores, periods. Do not use question marks. Do not use spaces, hashes, the pound sign, or ampersands. Those will totally hose UTM tags, so never use those. If you want to preserve tags, so like if you were to take a long URL like this one here on screen, and you wanted to preserve this tag, these UTM tags, you would use a link shortener. That way you could share it and always be giving credit to where you originally shared. If you, on the other hand, you want it to be rewritten, some pieces of software, particularly social media software like Buffer and Agorapulse and things, can rewrite your UTM tags if they're shared naked, like this on screen. So if you don't want them rewritten, use a link shortener like Bitly. If you do want them rewritten to be appropriate to each tool, leave them naked. I would strongly recommend that you have a naming guide like this. So where you have the date, who owns a UTM tag, the name of the campaign, and then, of course, the 5 components. And again, remember, they're all optional, but you definitely want to make sure you're using your source and medium for sure. You want to have campaigns where it makes sense to do so, and then term and content to differentiate pieces of content within a campaign. Using something like Google Sheets allows you to do a lot of this automatically. So if I were to use this sheet here, and I'll put let's do another campaign like testing campaign. By using a spreadsheet with functions built in to assemble these tags for you, you can have tracking done a little more easily with the correct syntax and not screw up the tags. So use this type of tracking sheet to manage the governance of your UTM tracking to make sure that everyone's literally on the same page, using consistent tags over and over again. And having the spreadsheet actually assemble them. You can see this formula here. This is a really long, complex formula to assemble all of the UTM tags appropriately. So if you want, you can make a copy of this. I'll share a link in the show notes, which is on my blog, and you can grab the URL from there to make a copy of the spreadsheet if you want to use this for yourself. But fundamentally, those are the best practices for UTM codes. Use them consistently. Make sure you have a common naming convention. Use link shorteners if you don't want them to change, and have a naming guide like this that will keep you organized. That is by far the biggest problem people run into with these tracking codes. So there's a lot more to be done with these. There's a lot more to dig into them, but at the very least, this is the starting point to get organized and to make use of them. So great question, Julie. As always, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter, and we'll talk to you soon. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.